Hey guys, welcome back to Econ Time with SK. So grab your notebooks, your favorite cup of coffee, and let's get started.
So in this video, we are going to continue with our discussion of equilibrium analysis. And remember that in the last video, we had looked at how in the equilibrium, the demand and the supply, they come together, right? And that's when we are looking at the whole market. One thing I really want to caution you about is the fact that you can never do any analysis with only looking at the demand and no supply, or only you're looking at the supply side of things and there's no demand. Okay, so you should never be drawing something like this, and then you sort of make up the price. You say initially the price was here, later the price is here. This is not okay. Why? Because where do you think the price comes from? The price actually comes from combining the demand and the supply curves, right? So you cannot ever just analyze one side of the story. Very simple. Just because you want to buy stuff, you can't go on top of a hill and then not negotiate with the supplier and then expect that the goods are going to just fall from above, right? So the buyers and the sellers, they need to come together, and when they come together, that is when equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity is determined. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let us actually look at how price adjustment occurs, right? So what I'm going to look at now is how does the market come to an equilibrium, right? Because remember, always some form of negotiation is taking place. So it's not always that you arrive at the equilibrium price at the beginning. Instead, there's a bit of trial and error. There's a bit of the consumers and the producers responding to certain signals. And ultimately, through this trial and error, the equilibrium price is determined. So what does that actually mean? So let's take this case, okay? As this diagram is showing, at the price P1, okay? So P1, which is greater than the equilibrium price of P star, at this particular price, the quantity supplied, of course, is greater than the quantity demanded, right? So that's what we're showing here. QS is greater than QD. When that is the case, this gap essentially is showing us the excess supply. So excess supply hole ki hoy. Excess supply, remember, is a disequilibrium. So there's actually incentive for change from both consumer and the producer side. All right, so both parties want some change. Now, from the supplier point of view, sellers obviously at this high price, they have more goods than they can sell, right? So basically their inventory is building up. Basically jeta hocche, because they cannot sell all that they're producing, ওদের গোদাম ঘরে সব আইটেম গুলো রাখতে হচ্ছে. So that's what we mean by inventory is piling up, okay? So ওরা যখন এই item গুলো বিক্রি না করে store করছে, তখন some sellers, they're going to, how will they respond? They're going to be like, hey, my inventory is building up. I don't want to be in this situation. I want to get rid of this extra stuff. So they actually reduce how much is being produced so that their inventory doesn't pile up. Okay. On the other hand, some sellers, to get rid of this extra inventory, what they do is they actually lower the price. Okay. And some sellers, they do both. They reduce the quantity supplied and they lower the price. So then what happens is that both the price and the quantity supplied, it begins to fall. So that is what is being shown here. All right. This movement along this curve, price o komche, quantity supplied o komche simultaneously. Okay. Now, what about the consumer side of the story? All right. The demand side of the story. So as the sellers are lowering their price, there's this downward pressure on price, how do consumers respond? Obviously, lower price means they start buying more. Remember, this was our law of demand. So as the price falls, they start buying more. So there's this movement along this curve, and this continues. The consumers and the producers continue to respond to this excess supply until this point is reached. Once this particular point is reached, okay, let me just call it E. Once E is reached, basically neither party has any incentive to change things around, okay? Because there's no longer a situation of excess supply. So the suppliers are no longer being challenged with the problem of inventory building up. So they have no more incentive to change things around, to reduce price or reduce quantity supplied. And when price is no longer falling, consumers no longer have any desire to increase how much they were buying. So what I've shown here is that when there's excess supply, both the sellers and the consumers, they react, and their reaction helps to bring the price down and helps to get the quantity to the equilibrium amount, which is Q star. So both of their action takes us to the equilibrium, which is E. And remember, equilibrium is defined as where QD is equals to QS. This is the equilibrium condition.
So in this video, we focused on how the market adjusts when there is excess supply. In the next video, we are going to look at excess demand. Specifically, we will see how the producers and consumers react and the market goes back to an equilibrium when there is excess demand. All right, guys, I shall see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.